7 kilometers down. That's how far we had to descend before we found something we'd never seen before. Not something new to science, something new to existence itself. And the moment the light touched it, it was already gone. The deep ocean covers 99% of Earth's habitable volume. 99%. That means if you stacked every city, every forest, every mountain range, every human civilization that has ever existed into one column of terrestrial space, the ocean would swallow it 200 times over and still have room for something we don't have a name for. We have mapped the moon. We have named craters on Mars. We have watched the birth of stars through telescopes pointed at the edge of time itself. And yet the Hadal Zone, the deepest part of our own ocean, remains less explored than the surface of Venus, less explored than the dark side of the moon, less explored than anywhere we have ever sent our eyes. Then in March of 2026, a submersible descended to 871 meters below the surface off the coast of Japan. It carried lights it had never used before, lights designed not to illuminate but to interrupt, to briefly see what was already living in the dark. And what came into the edge of that beam should not have existed the way it did. It was a squid, but not any squid we had ever named. The research team on the surface held their breath, that low tightening in the sternum that happens when you realize something you were watching has disappeared back into black, when the beam could not reach the wall behind it, when the dark one. They named it *Architeuthis umbra *, the shadow giant squid 7 meters long, eyes the size of dinner plates, tentacles lined with suckers arranged in a pattern that had no evolutionary precedent in anything we had catalogued. And it was only visible for the held second between the moment the light found it and the moment it curved back into a life that was already happening without us. But that squid was not the only discovery in 2026. It was not even the strangest. Off the coast of Micronesia, at depths of 200 meters, deeper than Mount Everest is tall, researchers found a crustacean that had adapted to pressures 800 times greater than sea level. Imagine standing on the Earth. Now imagine 800 Earths stacked on top of you. That is what this creature's skeleton had evolved to withstand. The exoskeleton was composed of a mineral arrangement science had never predicted. Not titanium, not carbon, something the pressure itself had written into existence. They brought a specimen up. It died at 4,000 meters depth. The pressure that created it was also the only thing keeping it alive. Release it into our world and it would simply cease, not burst, not explode, but gently deflate like a thing suddenly unburdened of weight. Like a life that only made sense in the dark. At 400 meters in a trench southwest of Guam, a camera caught something else. A bioluminescent organism that generated light not for communication or hunting, but for something science had no name for yet. The patterns of light it produced did not match any known signaling protocol. The rhythm was wrong. The wavelength was wrong. The entire principle seemed designed for something that did not exist in our taxonomy, perhaps for a conversation with a creature we have not yet found, perhaps for nothing, perhaps for its own solitude. Here is what matters. These creatures were not created in 2026. They were already living, they were already hunting, they were already adapting to pressures, temperatures, and darkness that would kill most of what lives on the surface in seconds. And our discovery was not a beginning, it was an interruption. A brief, rude intrusion of light into a life that had been complete in its own dark for millions of years before we even had the technology to witness it. We sent a light down, the animal curled back into black, the dark outlasted every shot. And the question that stayed with the research team, the one they could not unsee, was this. If we have only just found these creatures now in 2026 with all of our technology, our submersibles, our imaging systems that can see in wavelengths the human eye cannot even perceive, if we are only just now interrupting a life that was already complete without us, what else is down there? What else is living in rooms we are not in and were never consulted about? How much creation is still happening in the dark? The Hadal Zone covers approximately 40% of the ocean floor. That is an area larger than the entirety of North America. In the entire history of human underwater exploration, we have fully mapped less than 3% of it. We know more about the surface topology of the moon than we know about the seafloor 200 kilometers from where we live. Every time we send light down, we are making a choice. We are saying, I need to see you to believe you exist. And every time we send that light down, the creature has already made its own choice. To curve back, to accept the darkness, to return to a life that never asked for witnesses. In 2026, we learned something we should have learned long ago. The world is not waiting for us to discover it. It has been generating form, adapting to extremes, building lives in absolute darkness and absolute pressure for billions of years. We are not the authors of this, we are not even the witnesses, we are the interruption, a brief pulse of light in a film that was already playing. And the deep, which gives up almost nothing, has let us see just enough to know that almost everything is still hidden. The dark is still winning. The dark has always been winning. And somewhere 7 kilometers below the surface, in the space where no light reaches, something is still becoming. Something we have no name for yet. Something that does not need us to see it to be real. The ocean is still writing the story. We are just starting to listen in the dark.